What's up, everybody? Coach Daisha here, bringing you this week's hot topic. So, one of the very prevalent questions that I've gotten over the past week or two, which is interesting because I just did a hot topic video about pelvic tilt and neutral alignment, things like that, has to do with posture. And so, I really wanted to take this particular video to go over posture, especially when we're talking about the thoracic region and the lumbar region. Why improving our posture is so important, not only as we age, but if we have a diagnosis of osteoporosis. And then I'm going to give you two mobility and two strength moves that you can start doing every single day if you would like to help improve both areas. So let's go. So before we get started, let's talk about where the posture is happening, where poor posture is happening, and what good posture can look like. So let me show you poor posture first and where that's occurring. The poor posture is normally happening when we have a rounding in the thoracic region. So your thoracic region is where your ribs are. So if you find your ribs in the front and then take your hands to the back, you're going to find the bottom part of your thoracic region. It obviously comes up here as well. Your cervical region is just going to be the bottom of your head to your neck. So anything between here and where you can feel the bottom of your hands here is going to be your thoracic region. Below that are going to be 5 vertebrae that make up your lumbar region. And that's why we label those particular vertebrae L1 through L5. So there's a couple ways that you can have poor posture. The most prominent way is when we have that rounding of the back and we have that kyphotic curve, or kyphosis is what we call that, when there's excessive rounding right here in the thoracic region. The other thing that can happen is when we have too much of rounding in the lumbar region, almost like you're taking that tailbone up towards the ceiling, and that excessive curvature there in the lumbar region, we call that lordosis. So both of those are important to remember as we talk about posture. Now, what does good posture look like? If you're looking at somebody from the side, you want to see a few different things. You want to pay attention to the ear, the tip of the shoulder, the side of the hip, and then the ankle bone. If those 4 landmarks line up over each other, we're talking about good posture there, all right? If, however, you look at somebody from the side and you see the shoulders forward of the hips and that ankle bone, then we've got an excessive curvature there in the thoracic region, and we're going to work on the muscles in that region to make that posture better. So keep that in mind as we talk about why posture is so important. Well, the first thing is the bones with one of those designations or diagnoses are more fragile. If you have poor posture, then you're putting your vertebrae in positions that could cause them to fracture, what we call compression fractures. These fractures are very prevalent in the thoracic and lumbar region for anybody with osteoporosis. So if you can improve your posture and increase the space between those vertebrae, then you decrease your chances of those compression fractures. Next, when we have poor posture, that automatically causes muscle imbalances, or vice versa. The muscle imbalances cause the poor posture. Either way, they go hand in hand. So when we slouch, so let me turn to the side and show you poor posture. Poor posture is going to be rounding of the shoulders, rounding of the back, and maybe even a flattening of the what we call the lordotic curve. This is where the lumbar region is. When this happens, all the muscles in the back are getting lengthened. Those lengthened muscles, when they stay lengthened for too long, they get pretty weak. However, when we are slouched forward like this, the muscles in the front are doing the exact opposite. They are getting very tight. So the muscles in our pec, the front part of our neck, our abdominal region, etc. Those muscles, when they stay tight for too long, also become weak. These muscle imbalances basically are creating this vicious cycle. The more imbalanced they are, the worse our posture is going to get. The worse our posture is, the more those muscles become imbalanced, less strong, et cetera, et cetera. The last part that I like to emphasize when we talk about why posture is so important has to do with your balance. So somebody who's got good posture means that their center of gravity is where it should be, somewhere around the belly button region, right? So if you were to look at somebody at cross-sectionally, their center of gravity would be in the center. However, when we start to slouch, when we have poor posture, whether from a standing or seated position, the center of gravity has to shift in order to make up for that. So bad posture takes our upper body forward. If our upper body is forward, in order for us not to tip forward and fall, now our center of gravity has been shifted towards the back. If it continues to stay that way, if we ever get into a more neutral position with better posture, now all of a sudden our center of gravity is off. It's not where it normally is. So what happens there? We become imbalanced or unbalanced, and we tend to fall. Obviously, we're trying to decrease our fall risk, especially when we're talking about osteopenia and osteoporosis. So in order to keep our center of gravity where it should be, we also want our posture to be as good as possible. So now let's get into some mobility and strength training moves that you can do on a regular basis to help your posture. The first one I want to show you are wall angels. Now, I've got these cute little pictures up on my wall, so I can't show it as well as I would like, but I'm going to try to, okay? So you're going to find a wall that doesn't have anything on it. You're going to put your feet maybe about an inch or so in front of the wall. This is just going to help with balance so you don't feel like you're going to tip over in this position. From here, you're going to put your upper back against the wall, and your arms are going to come out into what I'd like to call goalpost position. From here, your wall angel is simply going to slide up towards the ceiling, making sure that you have contact with your lower arms the entire time, and bringing it back down to our goalpost. So slide up towards the ceiling, backs of your hands and your lower arms or your forearms are in contact with the wall this entire time. Now, you can do this for time. I would suggest doing it for about a minute, or you can do it for repetitions. Do 20. This is a great move to do first thing in the morning and last thing before you go to bed. Depending on your sleeping position, you may have a lot of muscles that are like this when you wake up in the morning. We want to wake up those upper back muscles, get them kind of stretched out and mobilized before we go on with our day. The next mobility move I want to show you are what I call seated thoracic rotations. So remember that word, thoracic. You want this motion to be occurring in the thoracic region and less in your lumbar region, okay? So sitting up nice and tall with both feet planted on the ground, I'm going to take my left hand and I'm going to gently put it on my right knee, the outside of my right knee. From here, I can take my right hand and continue to reach it towards the back of the chair, sitting up as tall as I can. Now, once again, if you're doing this correctly, you're going to feel this twist in that rotation in your mid back as opposed to your low back. Hold this position for about 20 seconds, then slowly let the left hand or the back hand release from the chair, front hand comes off, and then you're going to repeat on the other side. So we're going to take our right hand, put it on the outside of the left knee, sitting up tall. We're going to turn to the left and put that left hand on the back of the chair. Once again, you're going to feel this in the mid back as opposed to your low back. Hold for 20 seconds, then you can slowly release and come back up. Do 3 rounds of it. This can be something that you do at any time throughout the day, especially if you know you're going to be in a seated position for a very long time. Every 15 minutes or so, sit up nice and tall and do that seated rotation. Now let's talk about 2 strength training moves that can be very important for strengthening those muscles so they will automatically pull you into good posture. The first one I'm going to show you, since I've already got my chair out and my weights over here, are going to be 2 versions of a bent over row. So depending on where you are in your fitness journey, you may be able to do bent over rows with both hands, or you may need to do it single hand. So let's try the single hand version first. I've got the chair here so I can show you what you can do to help you balance yourself and support yourself with a single hand bent over row. So I'm going to get the dumbbell. In this case, I'm going to get it in my right hand, your left hand, okay? So from here, I'm going to face my chair and I am going to simply hinge at the hips, putting the other hand on the chair. Now, since the dumbbell is in my right hand, I'm going to slide that right foot back. Now from here, you can see that I'm hinged at the hips. I've got this back leg back for support, and I've got the front hand on the chair for support. From here, I'm going to look down at my hand. I am going to draw that dumbbell up towards the bottom of my rib cage, and then I'm going to release it back down to the beginning position. As I draw that dumbbell up to my rib cage, I am going to be focusing on bringing that right shoulder blade towards the left shoulder blade, which isn't moving right now. But that right shoulder blade should be moving every time I draw that dumbbell up towards the rib cage. Now let's talk about breathing. As you bring the dumbbell up, we're going to exhale. As you release it back down towards the ground, you will inhale. Now, what are we doing for this one? Do 10 repetitions on one arm, switch to the other side of the chair, do 10 repetitions with the other arm. If you are a beginner, aim for maybe 2 sets of that movement. If you're more advanced, 3 to 4 sets is going to be fine. Now, let's talk about a normal bent over row with both arms. We're not using the chair. Now, this is one where we do have to pay attention to not only our posture in our upper back, but what's happening in our lumbar region as well, okay? So to show you from the side, I've got both of my feet directly underneath my hips for this movement. I'm going to unlock my knees. I'm going to have both palms or dumbbells facing each other, and I'm going to slide the dumbbells down towards my knees to where I'm hinged to about a 45-degree angle. That's it, 45 degrees. From here, I'm going to contract my abs and make them as tight as possible. So you want to keep those abs tight for the duration of this movement. From here, I'm going to draw both dumbbells up towards the lower part of my rib cage and release them back down towards my knees. Once again, exhale as you row it up. Inhale as I lower. And now, as the dumbbells come up, we are squeezing the shoulder blades at the top and releasing back down. Squeeze at the top, release it back down. Slowly stand back up, and you're done. Once again, 10 repetitions of that move, because that one's bilaterally. You're doing both arms at a time. Do your 10 repetitions, take about a minute break, and then come back. My beginners, you can start with 2 sets. My more advanced or intermediate people, do 3 to 4 sets, whatever works for you. Last but not least is probably one of my favorite moves for not just strengthening, but for core stability in general is the bird dog. So I'm going to come down to the ground 1 knee at a time, and we're going to start on all fours. Now, when you are on all fours, you want to make sure that your knees stay directly underneath your hips. What I mean by this is you don't necessarily want to be back here. You see where my knees are here, but my hip is back here. Shift yourself forward to where we've got the knees directly underneath the hips. Now from here, your hands are going to be in front of you, your wrists directly lined up with your shoulders, all right? So there should be a 90-degree bend at the hips and a 90-degree bend at the shoulder in reference to the torso. Now from here, you're once again going to contract the abs, keep them tight during this movement. I'm going to pick my right arm, slide it forward. As it slides forward, my left leg is going to slide back. From here, both the right arm and the left leg are going to lift towards the ceiling. I'm going to hold for 1 second. I'm going to release them back towards the floor and then slide them back to the beginning position. Now that slide motion, the fact that I am turning the slide, lift, lower, and then slide back in, that's a 4-part move, and that's a great way to start to learn how to do an alternating bird dog. For those of you who've been doing this for a while, the more advanced version would be to take that slide out and take everything straight up and back down. You can also hold this 3, 2, 1, and then slowly release. That's advanced when you start to hold in that position. But what's great about bird dog is that as you keep those abdominals contracted, you're working the front part of your core, but you are naturally working your glutes and the muscles in your lower back or your lumbar region to fight gravity in this position. And that's bird dog. And that's it, everybody. I know you've been hearing about posture your whole life, right? Especially us females, you know, stand up nice and tall, right? Pretty posture, all that good stuff. And it didn't seem like it made a lot of sense or was that important when we were younger. But as we get older, I hope you now understand how important proper posture is for your body and your overall health. If you have any questions or comments, make sure you put those below. Otherwise, I will see you next week for another hot topic.